What's good? It's Colleen Witt, and Eating While Broke is back for Season 3. Brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. We're serving up some real stories and life lessons from people like Van Lathan, DC Young Fly, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and many more. They're sharing the dishes that got them through their struggles and the wisdom they gained along the way. We're cooking up something special, so tune in every Thursday. Listen to Eating While Broke on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
I just want to start off, again, thanking my pro staff, my leadership staff. It's a lot of work during the month of August with all the preseason games, and there's been 1,100 players cut since Friday, and the intimate knowledge that the staff has of those players, going through all the preseason games, top to bottom, understand the league, at the cut down where depth may be, where, things may fall a little bit short for what we need, and that helps us in, strategy planning and all that stuff. So Brandon Brown, Tim McDonald, Dennis Hickey, Chris Rossetti and his staff, Ryan Cowden, did a great job leading the pro staff, splitting up the league, and, we ended up claiming one player, Anthony Johnson from the Green Bay Packers, as safety, and, again, they do all that work, and we get one player. And, again, it also sets the table for us moving forward. Practice squad claims. We just, an email just came out with the subsequent moves that we'll go through this evening. So I thought it'd be important to recognize those guys and the job they do and, what they mean to the team. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Joe, were there other guys you claimed who you didn't get because there were teams higher?
We put in one claim. Yeah.
So how do you feel with your cornerback 2 position right now? Because that's a position people thought you might be looking to add. How do you feel with what you have at outside corner opposite Dion?
Yeah, I feel good with it.
You feel like you've done enough to address that position this offseason?
Yeah, drafting Drew Phillips we're excited about him. We thought that was a good pick for us in the 3rd round. You get a certain amount of swings and certain players are available. So it's a position we'll continue to look at it, as we will with all positions. And if there's an opportunity to upgrade there, we will. I think there was, again, 1,100 players drafted. There 1,100 players that were cut since Friday. I think there was 26. We just talked about this. 26 players, I believe, were claimed. 5 were corners. So of 1,100 players, 5 were corners that were claimed. So, that's an important position when we're making these trade calls or depth calls with other organizations. You're going to go, if you called every team, 32 out of 32 would probably say looking for depth at corner. So, it's a difficult position to find. We're always going to look to upgrade across the entire roster, but that position in particular, 1 or 2 injuries away, there's not a lot of teams that have 3 good corners on their roster as you really look through it. So, again, like I said, every position we'll continue to look to upgrade if we can.
How set on you or having Nick McLeod get the first crack there?
Yeah, they're going to compete it out. Flott's back now, so those guys will compete, and again, we'll leave that to Dave's and his staff and how they want to do it going into the week 1 with Minnesota, and again, I'll let him talk about who's going to play and not play.
Dave, how do you see cornerback 2? Do you see it as a competition, or both guys could play? Ready to name a starter?
Yeah, I have a good feel for it. I'm not going to share it with you right now, but I have a good idea of the direction it's going.
Joe, when you guys walked off the field at the end of last season, obviously your tasks at that point to improve the roster. How much do you feel you have, and in what main areas do you feel you have?
I feel like we've improved in several areas, but again, you can improve. The team still has to come together as a team, and every team's different. And I know Dave's has talked about it, and I talk about it. You still got to come together. I like the chemistry of the team where we are now. I think that's important. And some of the best teams aren't always the most talented team, but they come together. They they work hard, they know their assignments, they execute. Again, we don't know how this team's going to react when we're down 10, or how are they going to react when we're up 10, and when adversity strikes. What's that going to look like? So again, talent-wise, again, we like the group we have. We're excited about them, and we'll see how they gel and how they execute once we get out there on Sunday.
I mean, obviously, like not the expectations or the results, but what do you think when you look down this 53-man roster? You like better now than you did then?
Yeah, I like the group. I don't want to go position by position, but I like the group. We like the team. We like the chemistry. We like where we are, and excited to get things going this week.
You obviously want to improve every year, right? I mean, do you feel like this is your strongest roster of the three?
Again, same thing. Like we talk about it all the time. You're 1 or 2 injuries away from again. We like the group. We like where we are. Again, if you're sitting up here last year with the Bengals, you think they were going to be home in the playoffs, but no, they have a talented roster, and Burrow gets hurt. So again, you prepare the best you can. You put together the best group you can, and again, you hope things go well. And again, I'm confident in our staff. I'm confident in the players that we have, and I look forward to seeing how this team comes together and gels.
Joe, what to you would make a successful season this year?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get into what's successful and not what's we're worried about Minnesota and getting on to next week. Again, we like the group, and we're going to see what happens.
Were you surprised by any of your players that cleared waivers you were able to bring back on the practice squad here?
Was that, say that again?
Were you surprised by any of the players that you guys had that cleared waivers that you were able to bring back on your practice squad?
I wouldn't say surprised. I would say happy. I'm glad we were able to get some of the guys back that we got on the practice squad. So yeah, sometimes you worry about losing some guys, and again, you put some time and effort, and our coaching staffs do a good job developing these young men. And if you get the opportunity to continue to work with them, you're excited about that. And also, the practice squad's an extension of the roster, so you try to tread between developmental players and guys that can come up on Sunday if you need them to play, if something happens on a Friday or something that they've played in Sunday games and they know the offense and you can trust them to execute their assignments. So we like the group we have right now. We'll have a workout tomorrow with some guys, and we'll continue to churn that to try to have the best practice squad we can.
So how hard is it to really improve a team at this time of the year? You build a roster, free agency in the draft, and then this time of year comes along. How hard is it to make big impact moves?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest area where you can do it is the practice squad. Again, those players, again, that's your emergency list now. You used to have 6 or 8 practice squad players, and you'd have these workouts, and you'd have to sign somebody off the street, and they have to go play on Sunday. So to me, trying to gather the best practice squad that we can, where again those guys can be elevated on Sundays and help you win games, and if they have familiarity with this or a coach on our staff or whatever it may be. But to me, that's your depth throughout the year. So when you put 16 players, 17 now with the international times 32, what's left on the street? There's not a lot. So to me, the emphasis right now will be making the strongest practice squad we can, because that'll be our emergency list throughout the year. And maybe around the trade deadline, there's a chance to improve again. But, I think most rosters are set.
And then why were you so judicious with just the one claim? Was it because of what you have, or because of what was out there, you think? You go into it thinking we can maybe make 3-4 here?
When you go through it, yes. And sometimes it's fantasy football. You think they're going to, people aren't cutting good football. Like good football players are going to get out there and you're going to put in, 15 claims across the league that are going to change your roster. So a lot of times it's depth players, that can come in and again, get you through a season, or a depth safety that if an injury occurs and they have to go start, then, you're looking for those guys. So again, there's typically not a lot of frontline, starters that you're going to get, maybe some vets that get cut. I've got experience with that, but, again, Nick McLeod's still here. He's a valuable role player for us. And, Jason Pinnock is now starting for us. Tyree Phillips started games for us. So, history says you can find some good football players during this time, but, again, we're pretty thorough in our process and identifying who may or may not help us. And, again, it's the way it fell, there was one claim. And also when you claim somebody, you have to get rid of somebody. So that affects that position room too. So you got to take all that into account.
How much difference can Brian Burns or one guy make to a defense? I mean, you're starting primarily mostly guys, either a few rookies maybe, or almost everyone else is guys that were here last year. So how much of a difference do you think Brian Burns can make to this defense?
Yeah, any good player makes a difference. I can't quantify it. He's a good pass rusher. He's done a good job in camp. It takes 11 people to play good on defense. It takes 11 people to play good on offense, special teams. But when you have a good player, that certainly helps the other 10 players. So having a good pass rusher, if we can get them into those pass rush situations, should help the back end. But again, it's team football. It's the greatest team sport there is. So we need all 11 to play. But certainly the good ones, Jordan, they help.
Brian, what's the challenge? You got over 10 days still till Minnesota, just with your players now every day in practice, just to focus on.
Yeah, we've had two good days. Yesterday we had a good day with obviously missing all of the practice squad players, so it was high tempo, but it was lower reps. Today we had a full training camp practice. We had one-on-ones, we had two-on-twos, we had a bunch of team periods against one another. Tomorrow it'll be similar with shells on. And then the players will have the mandatory 3 days off. The coaches are, we worked hard in the off season on, I would say, the early part of the season, just getting a feel for schematics. But you don't really know the team you're playing until they have all the pieces. So, the game planning for a team is not just the scheme or the coordinator. It's now the pieces. So now once these teams have their 53 and somewhat, not everybody plays in the preseason, but, somewhat of, the guys' strengths and weaknesses. And again, you go back and look at some of the tape of the free agents that I'd say Minnesota acquired, some of the rookies. You're doing a lot of work right now as a coaching staff. You're looking at the stuff you did in the offseason. You're looking at the 3 preseason games right now. We're spending a lot of time doing that as a coaching staff, but for the players right now, what we're doing is trying to make sure we clean up some of the things that we've had issues with, whether it be in training camp, preseason, whatever it may be. So those, I'd say, periods that we have some are just offense versus defense, some are problem plays, if you will, that we've had in all 3 phases. So we're focusing on us. The players will have 3 days off here after tomorrow, which are mandatory. We'll continue to work as a staff and make sure that we're doing everything we can do, leave no stone unturned to get ready for the opening game.
Dave, you guys, you said you went pretty hard today. I'm just curious. We talked about the first team offensive line yesterday. How'd they come through today, and the fact that you have proven commodities on that line, maybe except for JMS, who is going into year 2. How much more of is it more of a feel for knowing what you're going to have in week 1 up there if those guys are healthy versus maybe last year you're waiting to see how guys will react?
Yeah, I'd say 100% with the 5 guys we have. Knowing they've only practiced a couple practices, but you have 4 veterans and a second-year player that are pretty diligent in their craft. They've played a lot of football. They understand what it takes. That's why we put GVR at center, just to give him some reps early on. It actually helps you with the system when you have to play center because you're making a bunch of calls. He's played next to Illuminor for a season. Runyon's played a lot of football at Green Bay, hasn't missed a snap. So those guys are working well together. But everybody needs to practice. Practice is important. It's, practice and preparation helps you, in game, and you need to practice. So those guys have had a good day of practice. It was good to get them out there in pads. We'll need another good one tomorrow, and then get a couple days off, and then get started again. But they've played a lot of football.
Sorry,
Yeah, that's okay.
You've said you've gone back a couple times and watched Evan Neal's Alabama tape, where he obviously played left tackle. Are you convinced that he could be a swing tackle for you guys? Like, could he do left tackle and right tackle, or is it enough for him to have to get back into the flow at right tackle?
Yeah, we'll work through that probably next week. Like Dave said, we're still doing good on good here, and the giant stuff that we need to correct on. So once we get into game week, we'll talk about who's going to be active, who's not going to be active, and what their roles may be if injury occurs. So
what about guard for him? Have you guys contemplated that at this point?
No. Why not? Because we have enough guards. He needs to continue to work at right tackle.
Brian, would you like a swing tackle, or could you have a different backup left tackle than you have a backup right tackle?
You could have both. Yeah. Again, it depends on who goes to the game. So, again, I think there's some flexibility with the depth that we have now. at the offensive line. Some of those guys were starters, now they're backups. We have some young guys that we're developing. You know, Cubis has come along nicely as a young player, undrafted, but has a good skill set and traits that you covet in an offensive lineman. He's a tough kid that's really smart. And then, you know, we have some other experienced players that have played. So, you know, the depth is there. Now it's just determined, you know, what 8 or 9, if we want to bring that, whatever it may be, to the game. But, you know, the 5 guys we have will be the 5 that start and hopefully stay out there.
Joe, how do you feel about Daniel and the first team offense? Do you see an offense that can take off and be explosive from what you've seen against Detroit, Houston, and the Jets here?
How do I feel? I feel good about it. The other words you put, you know, that's all you're saying. I feel good about it. I feel good about where we are.
Expect to keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53 all year long?
Yes. Yeah, Dave's and I were at the owners meetings in March, and I mean, I think they had said a stat. It was backup quarterbacks took almost 2,500 more snaps last year than in the past. So I mean, you've already seen a couple, you know, whether it was in Buffalo with their backup or up in Minnesota with the guy. There's already been some injuries with quarterbacks as is. So, you know, I think it's, you know, the way things went last year, we just, you know, we like where Tommy is. Drew had the injury, unfortunately. So, you know, we're going to continue to work with him. And then Daniel, we just think it's probably the best thing to do right now with us.
If that rule hadn't changed in terms of
it did for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, what have you seen from your quarterbacks this summer?
They continue to progress, get better. Again, Drew just arrived here, so you know, his ability to pick up the offense and execute the offense through camp. I'm sure, you know, from what you guys have seen, Daniel early on, there was a little bit of rust, and then, you know, I thought he really picked it up and had a good camp. You know, I understand there's maybe a throw, you know, he would have wanted back in the Houston game, but I thought overall, you know, when you step back and look at the good, if you want to look at through that lens, you know, I do think he had a good camp. And, you know, again, in the Houston game and that preseason game when he was, you know, when he played, with the exception of, you know, one throw, you know, I thought he played well.
You look at this, Joe, after the joint practices, the preseason games, the summer as a whole, when you assess the talent of this team, is it what you expected it to be before all that began, or are you guys a little bit further along than what you expected?
Yeah, they've got to go out and execute, you know, whether it is or not. Like, we got to go make plays on Sunday, and we got to, you know, we're getting ready for Minnesota, and, you know, whatever I say, none of that matters. They got to go out and make plays. The team is the team right now, and we've got to come together and gel, you know, offensively, defensively, and special teams, and you know, see how they do.
Joe, do you think there is pressure at the start of the season to win games and show results for you and Brian?
Yeah, it's a little bit like, you know, not, I think from everybody, you know, really pressure to win every game. There's only 17 of them, so they're all important. So yeah, I mean, we would love to get off to a fast start. We did year 1 and we didn't year 2. I mean, it helps if you can. Again, you want to win them all. There's low margin for error in this league, and every year, I'm sure everybody goes back and says, oh, if we'd have done this, or this would have went our way, or if we'd have made that kick. You know, everybody does that. So they're all important regardless of the time of the year. And, you know, we just, you know, getting off to a fast start helps, and it helped us year 1. And, you know, we struggled to do that last year. So, yeah, they're all important though, Pat.
Joe, you're not going to
said almost everything you've said earlier in the off season about Daniel was, well, if he's healthy, you know, he's coming off an ACL. Now that he's gone through this whole thing, maybe for both of you, I mean, is that kind of out of your head? I mean, he didn't miss anything. He looked good. He looked strong. I mean, is that out of your head now, the if he's healthy part?
Yeah, I think he's good to go. And I'll just say, in my 24 years in the league, no matter who's back there, what their injury history is, when that position takes a hit or gets sacked or whatever it is, if Daniel had 0 injury history, you're still always worried at that position when they take a hit. You know, I don't care what team I've been on, that's always been a concern. So, you know, again, hopefully we can protect him this year, and, you know, he can stay healthy, and, you know, he can be available for us all 17 games.
Joe, I know you're not going to say a win total, but, you know, John Mara talked earlier to us in camp. He said, you know, I want to see significant improvement. So how do you measure that? What does that look like to you this season?
Yeah, you guys asked him. You guys had a chance to talk to him. That's he said significant improvement. So you guys talked to the most important person.
What does that mean to you? Did you guys have conversations?
Yeah, again, Dave's not going to approach this job without not saying we want to go out and win. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's why we work our tails off. That's why we were here all night last night doing the waiver cut down. You know, that's why we're out all spring on pro days. That's why we do all the work. Not to come up here and, not win games. So that's always going to be the goal. I mean, I don't understand. I get the question, but the goal is to win games, always.
Kroger brand products have the great taste you'll celebrate. That's why over 40 million people choose Kroger brand products, making them a true crowd pleaser. And with quality guaranteed, you'll love your choice or get your money back. Score Kroger brand products with savings you can cheer for and great taste you can't resist. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
The all-electric Chevy Equinox EV combines everything you need when you're ready to go EV. Starting at $34,995, the 2025 Equinox EV-LT gives you an impressive balance of all-electric range, safety features for peace of mind, and effortless technology, including the 17.7-inch diagonal display screen, all at a price you'll love. The Chevy Equinox EV is the fun-to-drive, all-electric SUV that gives you what you need to do exactly what you want. The manufacturer's suggested retail price excludes tax, title, license, dealer fees, and optional equipment. Dealer sets final price. To learn more, visit Chevy.com/Equinox EV.